is, I would say right now, the biggest hockey story of the year. Probably on the ice, because obviously I think Arizona off the ice in the Katie Strang article is probably the best written piece of sport media in hockey, at least of the year. Yeah. But I think when it comes to on ice drama, which then bleeds out of the ice, it is the Tom Wilson situation, and we have to start it. So
you know how unfortunate that is. Sorry to cut you off. That this is the biggest story on the ice. Like Connor McDavid could score 100 points in a 56 game season.
And he's up to 93.
Like, come on. I mean, like, who's to blame?
Social media,
right? No. Like, this was gonna happen.
Listen, I have a little model. I've been thinking of something, and I'm very proud of it. We'll talk about this later because it comes full circle to what the conversation we've been having about player discipline and that throughout the year. So, in the game the other day, I think it was May 3rd was the exact day. Tom Wilson had a bit of an incident with Pavel Buchnevich of the New York Rangers, and then after that with Artemi Panarin. During a little scuffle in front of the net, you know what? Buchnevich is on the ice after I believe it was Dmitry Orlov had thrown him down. Tom Wilson is basically keeping him. It looks like he keeps him down in the neck with a stick, like holding the guy down. He's completely just vulnerable. And then you see Tom Wilson takes a shot and hits him. I don't know if exactly the angle I've seen, if it's from the back, if it's from the head. And that is not important because that is still going after a vulnerable player. Now, after this, Artemi Panarin basically jumps on Tom Wilson because he's there to defend his teammate, his friend, and all that. And after that, there is a whole... It's like a wrestling match, but it's not even like, it's kind of like, you know, when like you and your friends get in like a crappy fight and it's like winter and you're throwing each other all above the snow. And Tom Wilson just manhandles Artemi Panarin. He throws him onto the ice when Panarin doesn't have a helmet on. As a result of this, actually Panarin will not play for the rest of the season. He was even taking some shots at Panarin while he was still having his gloves on, by the way, Wilson. You can't call it roughing. I don't know what you can call it other than
dirty
a mauling. And as a result, from Tom Wilson, who is, whether the NHL want to say it or not, is a repeat offender, has had multiple suspensions, lost a lot of money from it. 5 suspensions, is it, Alex?
Yeah.
A result of all of this was given merely a $5,000 fine for the roughing on Pavel Buchnevich. So there's a whole cascade of things that happen after this. But first, let's look at the simple fact that the NHL chose only to give a $5,000 fine to Tom Wilson. Again, the stuff with the Rangers and all that we will get to in a second because it has just been a carousel of earth-shattering news. And Alex, I'll ask you here first because you have been the most vocal on this podcast about player safety.
I want to bring up the wrestling part you brought up there is 100% accurate. Just the way Tom Wilson acted after when he was in the box, just so wrestling, but whatever, that's besides the point. Like I thought it was suspendable. Just before I get in, like I think I want to clarify a couple things because every time I hear about it's the media, whatever, like it's just mind boggling the way it's been covered. We are talking about Tom Wilson, the hockey player, not the person. Let's just make that 100% clear. We are not talking about Tom Wilson, the person. I don't know what he's like outside of the ice. Number 2, are we all in agreement that Tom Wilson should not be kicked out of the league?
No.
Okay. Just then we're good. Because I just want that to be on the record that this is what we believe. I don't think he should be kicked out of the league. I think there's actually such a small number of fans who believe that, and some media members are jumping all over that for clickbait, but that's my opinion. It was suspendable. I thought it would I'm not even surprised though. Are either of you surprised by the outcome of this?
Not really. Like it was about to happen. He was going to do something like this. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's just the one thing that really does bother me, and we've mentioned so many times, it's just that accountability, really from either side. And I don't know if Adam, you want to mention this after. It had more to do with the Washington's Twitter.
Oh no, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Okay,
But
but
mention it now. Go ahead because it was pretty bad.
yeah, I think for me that was my initial reaction because I was watching the game and then it was already something where it's just one of those plays where it just makes you stop and think that did that actually happen and was that allowed? Like why did something like that just transpire? And then it's like the Capitals just doubled down on it
So
with their tweet.
I've had the give of it coming over. So it isn't even the other Caps player that pushes him down, by the way, Pavel Buchnevich. He kind of hits him, but then Wilson kind of plants his head or like Buchnevich period down to the ice too. And yeah, so the Washington Capitals Twitter account, I don't know what you call this kind of new meme where it's like it measures. I can't can one of you guys explain exactly? I'm not a big.
It's okay, I'll try to do my best. With something where it's supposed to be something where it's like a certain range that you show of something, and it's supposed to be like I don't know, like a funny kind of thing, but
Like if it was a Powerpuff Girl, it'd be like 1/3 sugar, 1/3 spice, 1/3 everything nice.
But honestly, like for me, it's just because like one thing is shout out to Michael Russo from The Athletic. He was one of the first guys to said this is so disrespectful.
So and what it was there was like a very small portion that said best goal scorer in the league, which was dumb. There was a section that was like blah 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 blah, like just kind of I think it was supposed to represent fans just.
Yeah, like the rent-free thing, yeah.
Yeah, rent, and then there was the rent-free stuff, which is just such a terrible saying.
I have it up if you'd like me to.
Yeah.
Remember. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I'm just screen. Yeah, bring it up in a much better way of visually saying, like trying to explain this. You go ahead,
Okay. Alex, am I allowed to?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I have it on. Remember last week when saying rent free wasn't cool?
Okay.
Oh, it was such wonderful times.
So there's like an inch that's like best goal scorer in the league. There's like the head being like sheesh whatever, like, and then a majority, like 90% of this line is just rent free, and it's like that like drawn man cringing type of thing.
Yeah.
It was deleted very quickly, but naturally everyone screenshotted it because
I didn't even see this one.
Really? Never mind then.
This is the one that really bothered me because when I was watching the game and then I checked Twitter, this is the first thing I saw because Michael Russo commented on it. I'm like, Washington, what are you doing?
If you don't know what we're looking at exactly, you can always check out the YouTube feed version of this show to check it out.
Exactly. Great plug. Plug.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tom Wilson. Let's ask the question then, okay? Why was he not suspended? And I have a bit of a theory on this, and it's really annoying when you start listening to like Hockey Central and it's like, oh crap, they're making the same point. I don't want to seem like a ripoff here. So the NHL, in my opinion, has a massive identity problem. And that is there are technically what Tom Wilson did to Artemi Panarin, and I'm being very careful here, is within the rules of the NHL technically. Because
I don't think they are.
The league, see, this is the problem, is there is a divide in fans. There are the old school sort of viewership that see this, that these just complete circus shows of wrestling matches were a normal thing. And the problem is new age fans, we're in an age where these younger players that sort of come in are more the fine skating, finesse, deeks and dangle type players, right? And that's what fans like. There's a difference between face punch, flip suplex, and just a fight. And the problem is the NHL are still trying to, and you see this reflected with player safety, that they still want that bit of violence. And I think player safety can only follow the line that the NHL itself has set here. And that's the problem. They're too half pregnant in the sense of they want a fun, fast-paced game that is still dependent on the skill, and that's what we love in the North Division. McDavid, fast, high-scoring games, and the mix of this just rough and tough crap that people seem to love in Tom Wilson. Like, it's so annoying because you can see that there are players who can play this hard without crossing the line. And again, two players that all of us on this podcast love because they are the teams we cheer for. Josh Anderson is like that kind of player. Wayne Simmons is that type of player. They can punch face back more like before Wayne Simmons and injury problems because he's older than Anderson, right? Mm-hmm. There was the high scoring ability. And it's just this weird thing where the NHL doesn't quite know, I think, what the game still is. So that's the problem.
Yeah. So you mean the Panarin stuff is against the rule or is not against the rules is what you're saying, right? Okay. So I got confused. Yeah.
That, like, listen, like, I personally think the Panarin stuff is disgusting and you protect your stars, but it's like to the NHL itself, that wrestling match. And then we kind of saw it last night. Was it Crosby and Konechny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though Panarin, and like the thing that really crosses the line was Panarin's head hitting the ice and he didn't have his helmet on. Like that is, but if the big thing is, and if anyone doesn't believe me, the proof is that Tom Wilson did not get suspended and the fine had to do with Buchnevich and nothing to do with Panarin, which is ridiculous.
I think you're 100% right. And like I just to build on that point, I think at this point what the league needs to do, because I don't think what's going on is good for anybody. And there's no stakeholder in this situation. The fans, the league owners, the players, that there's just so much confusion. So let's fix this. You go to the table in the summer to the PA and you say, you know what? Let's rewrite this rule book the way we want it. Because to be honest, there's no reason that the three of us should have the same conversation 100 times a year. Can either of you explain to me what goaltender interference is?
That's subjective right there.
Don't remind me of any game against the Ottawa Senators this year.
But I think the big thing that like kind of bothered me was when they say like they don't know what they are. In a sense, I think that if you look at any other sport and the amount of research that's been put on already with like these, like we don't have that rough and tough kind of thing anymore. Because it's like two things, like there's the decline of those types of players, but at the same time, it just there definitely has been a lot more research on what these types of, aspects of the game do to people in terms of concussions, in terms of injury. And if there's two examples I could think of, it's like, I remember Steve Downey.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Like the way he played. And I remember when it was mostly on Twitter, then he came forward after about just what he was kind of raised with and what he didn't know what his role was because of what the game has become kind of thing. And one thing he mentioned was remember Don Cherry's Rockin' Stock'em?
Yeah.
Yeah. Seems like
those types of videos where it's just that kind of thing where it's like that old time glorification of that. And
game suspension, you love it, is every hit on those buttons.
Yeah. And I think that now this was for me a good example to kind of say that, we're not gonna tolerate this kind of thing, because again, like when we talk about they have the guys that could really do it, but at the same time, like we talked before last episode about that code that we had, that I remember this was in the Enforcer documentary. Also, I believe that on Overdrive it was mentioned, like Bob Probert, he was a scorer, but he also was the enforcer on the Detroit Red Wings, because you had to have a guy like that, because you don't expect like a Steve Yzerman or Sergei Fedorov to do something like Panarin had to do.
No. It's again yet another example of them not defending their stars. And I have in the past been like, listen, like I love a net front battle with cross checks, and I've always been like play it evenly for everyone. But when you belly to belly suplex Artemi Panarin, who plays for arguably the biggest market in the league, the probably the
biggest,
if not second most important team in the league, in it's New York, for the love of God. They play everyone knows how important the city of New York is, not just to hockey, sports, but just pop culture or anything. It's freaking New York. This is how important it is. And the Rangers themselves were not having any of this, because they released a statement that I will remind everyone in the context of what we're going to talk about a little later with the firing of Jeff Gordon and John Davidson, this statement is still up. So from the official New York Rangers Twitter account, statement from the New York Rangers. Quote, the New York Rangers are extremely disappointed that Capitals forward Tom Wilson was not suspended for his horrifying act of violence last night at Madison Square Garden. Wilson is a repeat offender with a long history of these types of acts, and we find it shocking that the NHL and their Department of Player Safety failed to take the appropriate action and suspend him indefinitely. Wilson's dangerous and reckless actions caused an injury to Artemi Panarin that will prevent him from playing again this season. We view this as a dereliction, can't see it, I'm sorry, of duty by the NHL head of player safety, George Peros. And we believe he is unfit to continue his current role. That's everything from the statement. They called out the head of player safety. I cannot, first off, they're not wrong. It was a joke. Now, I believe people talked about the last time this kind of statement happened was the Sharks a couple years, I can't remember exactly what year. And I think it was in response to either playoff stuff or something to do with Rafi Torres, who notoriously got that 41 game suspension a couple years ago. It was basically booted out of the league.
Probably Rafi Torres.
Yeah. So, and they got, I think it was $100,000 fine. Now, the ruling about if they're going to get any discipline is not going to happen today, apparently. Elliot Friedman was talking about that. And this was very much that we can kind of pick up now was definitely a sort of message not from management, but from ownership and AKA from Jim Dolan, who I have learned today is apparently a mad lad. And if you were a basketball fan, you probably know that because this is the guy head of all of the Garden stuff. So the Knicks are all under that umbrella. And we can kind of, under the same umbrella, actually mention that it was very much put out there, and Frank Saravelli was the first one I saw mention this, that John Davidson, who's the Rangers president, and Jeff Gordon, who was the GM, scurried to distance themselves from the team statement that was issued on Tuesday night, telling other executives that they did not know it was in the works until after it was released. Now, earlier today, Gordon and Davidson were fired. Now, it was very much said that, and Friedman has sort of also elaborated on this, that it did not have directly to do with the Wilson statement. Again, it's been very much said it's an ownership thing, not management. But apparently that Tom Wilson was the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of the way the Rangers are now. Apparently, Dolan was not happy with the way the Rangers are playing this year, even though the New York Rangers are being screwed right now by the playoffs because they have more points than the Habs and the Jets, who are playoff bound. And I will remind you guys, how long ago did this rebuild start? And Jim Dolan has basically said, nada, we don't love this. A team that is still rebuilding, and Tom Wilson has pulled a Pekka Rinne against the Chicago Blackhawks and has now made the Rangers fire probably one of the best GMs in the league and a pretty stable president.
Yeah, I think it was a weird thing for me too, because a lot of the articles that are coming out, a lot of what people said when they look back on things, like there was the speculation already there where it was kind of inevitable that Chris Drury was going to become the general manager ever since he retired in 2011. Mm-hmm. They were saying like this is the future GM kind of guy, which I don't understand. He played the majority of his career in Buffalo. But anyways, yeah, but the thing is, it was a weird thing because when you mentioned what this rebuild has been for the Rangers, I know that the early 2000s with Messi and Brian Leach's like last few years, or Mike Richter, that was a bad team. They got Yager, they tried to do something, they just tried to buy their way out of it, and then they managed to find a team, through ironically Henrik Lundqvist, who they bought out in 2014, has that finals run. But I think they went into this rebuild thinking that okay, we have the high picks, we have I think they got lucky with certain parts where like they got Adam Fox for what they gave up, like a second and a conditional second. And again, these guys are like in their early 20s. Like Kaapo Kakko is only just turning 20 now, and I don't know what they kind of expected from this team, what they thought they were going to be, because I think they've exceeded expectations based on the type of players they put around on Artemi Panarin. Like these young guys are still doing what like any rookie would be. Like it would be excusable on any other team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I think everything Daniel said is right in terms of the firing. I guess in terms of the statement, I do think the Rangers statement is huge, whether you think it was good or whether I know I've heard different opinions on what the statement means. I think we have to remember that this is the most valuable NHL team, and they have pull, whether you like you want to think about that or not. And if other teams are just as fed up as they are, knowing that the Rangers feel the same way and, you know, they might have your back, I do think means a lot. And the fact that they went public with it just adds extra pressure in a way to what is going on. And, you know, I think it was on Hockey Central. They said over under $100,000. I don't like it's probably going to be over, but do you know how, like, when they have fans in the building, okay, $200,000, let's say, like they're pulling that out of their pocket and throwing it on the table like I would with a $5 bill. Like that's nothing to them. So go ahead and fine them. Is this going to be an issue down the line when they have other things to deal with the league? Maybe, probably. But I do think that this statement is a pretty big thing.
Well, I was thinking maybe it's going to be like $250K because that's what Arizona got for their sort of draft shenanigans.
Yeah.
And that's kind of messing with the fabric of draft.
They actually did something wrong. Like, that's what I think.
Yeah. And the league, maybe it could even be more because the league you would expect are going to stand up for one of their own. I also wonder here, do you guys remember who Tom Wilson injured earlier in the year?
Yes.
It's Brandon Carlo. Now, there was some stuff I saw. I can't remember exactly who from, that apparently they didn't want to suspend Wilson for that, but apparently there may have been a thing higher up from Gary Bettman. Now, the owner you piss off there is Jeremy Jacobs, who is apparently the most influential owner in the league. Because he predates Bettman, I'm pretty sure. So if you not only have now upset the Rangers owner with Dolan, and if he can somehow join side with Jeremy Jacobs, and owners normally don't stray very far from Bettman to begin with, but those are all of a sudden two very important voices. Those are original six teams, two of your biggest U.S. markets, which are pretty important. I'm not saying there's going to, viva la response, but there's something there, guys. I mean, and Carlo, he came back, but I know he was hurt again, and I'm pretty sure there was a head injury there.